Ladies and gentlemen, the first pre-release is out for the Wild update, Minecraft 1.19. This means that feature work is more or less done for this update, and from this point on, we should expect mostly bug fixes. My name is Slime, and in this video I'm going to take you through all the changes in 1.19 pre-release 1. Let's start with some changes to mobs and mob spawning. The light-sensitive mobs in the Nether now spawn in higher light levels up to level 11. This means you can now find Endermen, Skeletons, Wither Skeletons and Piglins spawning in more places in the Nether. The overworld and the end still work just like they used to. The change made to iron golem spawning in the previous snapshot has been reverted. Iron golems are now back to spawning like they used to. And Wardens now required a full solid surface on the block they're spawning on. Speaking of the Wardens, several of their animations would never play unless the Warden was on screen so you could see it. That is fixed in this version. When an LA picked up an item, the item warped to a point above the LA's head. That is fixed in this version. Goats and frogs now panic when they're hurt, even if they are being tempted with food. And frogs no longer jump around while they are tempted with food. Tadpoles can now be tempted with slime balls, and killing a tadpole no longer makes it drop experience. Let's wrap up the mob section with a ghast fix. Reflecting a fireball back to a ghast will now once again kill it. Let's talk about Sculk Sensors. There are plenty of tweaks and fixed interactions with them in this version. There are now item use vibrations, which are ignored by Sculk Sensors and Wardens when you sneak. They are emitted when you start or stop using an item that has a separate use animation, like drawing a bow, charging a crossbow, holding up a shield, eating food, and so on. Note blocks now generate a vibration of frequency 6, and playing a goat horn now generates a vibration of frequency 15. A number of bugs have been fixed with things that should trigger Sculk Sensors not doing so, including a spawner spawning a mob, or players equipping armor using the inventory. Other things did trigger Sculk Sensors despite not being supposed to, including a player swapping items between hands. The distance value output by a Sculk Sensor was lacking precision, which is fixed in this version. And the comparator frequency of a Sculk Sensor you stepped on was the last frequency it detected from another event rather than the stepping frequency. In gameplay news, a Sculk Catalyst would trigger from a villager being converted into a zombie villager, which is fixed in this version. One advancement fix as well, the It Spreads advancement is now unlocked after the Monster Hunter advancement. Before we move on to even more fixes, let me quickly ask you to help this video spread by hunting down the like button. Your click helps get YouTube to spread this video further, so I appreciate your help. Thank you. This version also contains a world generation tweak. The amount of mangrove trees in a mangrove swamp has been reduced somewhat. Instead of attempting to place a tree 30 times per chunk, the game will now do 25 attempts per chunk. In sound news, equipping armor using the inventory now plays a sound, and placing an item that isn't armor onto your head slot, like wearing a pumpkin or skull, now plays a generic equip sound. Subtitles have been added for frogs walking, and the subtitle for picking up a tadpole now has a specific message instead of just saying bucket fills. Let's run through some user interface fixes too. Opening the Realms menu would show a message that your client was out of date when the real error was that it was too new. It will now instead say that your client is incompatible and that Realms is not available for snapshot versions. The description of the FOV effects setting now correctly mentions all gameplay effects rather than only speed effects. Messages from structure blocks are no longer formatted as if they were chat messages, and if you have enter bound as your open chat key, the chat input no longer closes itself immediately after opening. For a visual fix in this version, the potted mangrove propagule model now renders correctly. Let's move on to some command news in this version. A chat preview window now shows for chat-related commands like /say and /message, just like the chat preview for regular messages. This also fixes a problem where entity selectors had stopped working in those commands. And chat styling is now applied properly for say commands even when run from a command block. The autocomplete list for entity selector arguments now once again has the appropriate content, and autocompletion is now available for the template argument to the place template command. If you click the incomplete command error message, you now once again get a / prefix on your command, and commands prefixed with double slashes no longer run. In server news, custom servers can now use a new network packet to enable or disable chat preview for certain clients. A fix has been made for some log entries mentioning game test server, and the temporary test rainbow chat function from last snapshot has been removed. There are 2 new game events in this version: Note Block Play and Instrument Play. In data news, the ID of the British Shorthair cat variant is now British_Shorthair rather than just British. The spelling of the entity.frog.tongue sound event has been fixed, and the --dev argument to the data report generator now works for converting NBT files to the SNBT format once again. In custom world news, dimension types now have 2 new fields for controlling monster spawns. They are Monster Spawn Block Light Limit, which is an integer controlling the block light needed to prevent monster spawns, and Monster Spawn Light Level, which is an int provider, which is evaluated to find a value to compare the current overall brightness with to determine if a monster should be allowed to spawn. Let's wrap up with some stability and performance news, where quite a few crashes have been fixed, especially ones relating to non-ASCII characters used in several contexts. And that'll do it for this time. Thank you so much for staying with me through the entire video, I really appreciate it. If you want to see even more of what's coming to Minecraft 1.19, check out this video from a previous snapshot.